Carlos Sainz. Started third, finished second, put on a pretty strong challenge. Alex, you've said that you didn't think it was probably ever really going to happen. I wonder whether, Bob, you agreed with that and what your opinion is of Sainz versus Leclerc in terms of talent and speed.
So many times I've actually said what a perfectly matched pair they are, because so often you find them, say, in a practice session or a qualifying session, they literally end up hundredths of a second apart. And yet Leclerc seems to be the slightly more aggressive driver, doesn't make quite so many mistakes as Sainz does. Sainz has had more accidents. He's ended up on the wall. He's damaged the car more often. Don't get me wrong. I'm a great Sainz fan. I love him and his dad as well. Just a great double act together, father and son. But I just don't feel that Carlos has quite got the measure of Leclerc when it comes to races. And also, you see him dropping back just a little bit during the races in comparison to Leclerc. So I thought Sainz was really on form, and I was so delighted to see he was on form this last weekend. But he's perhaps not quite as aggressive, maybe doesn't quite have the confidence yet that Charles Leclerc has. So I still am waiting to see the best of Carlos Sainz. It's to come. Sure, it's to come.
Yes, I know what you mean. And the stats on that are pretty clear, aren't they? In qualifying this year, he's 8 times been out-qualified by Charles Leclerc, and the one time he did start ahead of him on the grid was this time in Canada when, of course, Charles had penalties for power unit changes. Still lies, well, he only lies 5th in the World Championship and some 24 points off Charles, who is 3rd. We've got a question in from the audience. We did ask for them, and we are getting them. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And here it is. And the question is, I think this is to Alex, really, the question is that if Ferrari had put Carlos Sainz onto medium tyres, would there have been any chance, do you think, of him catching and indeed overtaking Max Verstappen?
Yeah, that's a really valid question. It would have been the aggressive choice for sure. I think Ferrari tried to play it a bit safe because they knew Sainz suffered from graining on that first stint in mediums at the very beginning of the race. But normally when you have a little bit of graining on a green track, that can go away once the track's gripped up. And especially towards the end of the race, it would have been low fuel. It would have been a fair shout to put him on mediums. There was only, 15 laps of really hard laps to go. And it would have been a decent shout, I think. But I think maybe Ferrari felt the graining was so bad at the beginning of the race that the graining would still be an issue at the end of the race, and so they decided the hard tire was a safer option. And maybe they thought he could have done it on the hard tire, because it's 5 laps younger. Canada is a track you can overtake, and just to reiterate what Bob was saying, it is, Sainz is going to win Grand Prix. He'll win lots of races in his career, but he doesn't quite show that sparkle that says to me this guy's going to win a world championship one day, not like Leclerc and Verstappen do, and that's what I would say. I mean, Sainz was faultless in that drive towards Verstappen, but just a small mistake, using too much curb in the last corner with 2 laps to go, and then just running wide at the hairpin, because at that point he was within 4/10 of Verstappen. So he thought, all right, he's definitely, I'm not saying he's going to overtake, but he'll definitely be able to get, if he nailed those 2 corners, he would have been on the penultimate lap, close enough to Verstappen that Verstappen would have at least had to defend. And if he had to defend, maybe Sainz has a chance to try and overtake. Not saying he would have made the move, but he didn't really get Verstappen to defend, which meant that just at those key moments, he wasn't quite good enough.
Yeah, totally. That's the key point, isn't it? It never looked like Max was actually anywhere other on the racetrack than he would have been if he was running alone.